Okay. Now,
You're not ready. You're not. Like, no, you just dive in.
Do you really think it's going to be?
I'm telling you, there are 5 of the biggest what the moments in this that you just hear me like, oh, okay.
This show's got a lot to like regain after those
I'm telling you.
2 episodes.
I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
All right.
You're going to know in the first 30 seconds to a minute, this is not like those 2 episodes. Welcome back to Cheap Pop, everybody. This is Derek Kirby, joined again by Matt Carlin, and today we are talking Neon Genesis Evangelion, the End of Evangelion. It has been a minute. We needed a little bit of extra time to process this. I think that's fair. Wouldn't you say, Matt?
Oh, yeah. Watching it, I was just like, I need to take this in smaller pieces because there's a lot going on.
Oh, so much to deal with. So if you're new here, which by the way, if you're new here and this is your first episode, you're going to have no idea what the is going on. Just putting that out there now. But this is the podcast where we like to take a film, television show, sometimes video game, maybe not, don't talk to us about it, break it down, flip it, and reverse it while giving you our insights, our analysis, and perhaps some interesting stuff you might not have known. If you did know it, hey, good for you. We don't really care. But we started out with this project here, sort of this soft reboot of Cheap Pop with the Neon Genesis series, and we went through the original 26 episodes. That was like the groundwork foundation for the End of Evangelion, which to me is penultimate Neon Genesis. Like, there's the rebuild series. There are some great moments there. There are arguments to be made for that as well. But for me, my personal favorite installment in the entire franchise is the End of Evangelion. But without that foundation, you're not going to know anything that's going on for a variety of reasons here. I'm curious, though, as we step into this now, because I imagine this is going to be our longest episode, probably enough that we'll have to break it into 2 parts. What were your initial thoughts going in? We obviously did 25 and 26, so I know your thoughts on those, but what were your thoughts going in on End of Evangelion specifically?
I would say I kept my mind pretty open as far as what my thoughts were going in, but I did write down, because I was thinking about this, so I was like, what were my thoughts going in? And I feel like this pretty accurately represents those. One of which is that my main expectation is that we're going to get to see a battle, finally, rather than this introspective moment where we're seeing, inside of our characters' minds and not really having anything to do with real life other than giving us small little tiny baby snippets that make us angry.
What, you want answers? Come on. Isn't it better when it's completely ambiguous and you barely know what's happening?
Goodness. So there's that. I definitely thought we're going to get something cool here, but there's going to be something that we don't like, and I feel like it's going to be a move out of spite, which I feel like we got. And
yeah, in spades.
Yeah, and that's due to the reaction from the fans after, the original release of 25-26. It's just that you can't shit on somebody's work and not have some repercussion. So it's like you're getting a fan service, which is pretty considerable with how this series ended and the time you've got in between. But damn it, if you're not going to get a little bit upset with something happening here, you got to bite back at your audience some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we talked about this before, as Hideki Anno was kind of working on End of Evangelion, or not End of Evangelion, as he was working on the series itself, it kind of became the vehicle for his own sort of self-therapy, as he was just trying to understand kind of his own emotional inner turmoil. And that does subvert the usual expectations for kind of mech animes that you would have. Like, one of his influences was like the Gundam Wing films and series. And that's interesting. You can kind of see some of those influences. But he absolutely takes it in a different direction, which does in a grand scheme, especially the more distance has kind of gone. Again, this End of Evangelion was 97. With distance, it's kind of like further elevated the work, I think, even beyond its immense popularity it had then. But it's one of those things, too, where it's almost like you subverted to such an extent that people didn't get what they ultimately wanted, which was some kind of big crescendo battle where everything was going to come together. They were fine with the introspective moments, but they wanted clarity. They wanted definitive answers to all of these. It's like the J.J. Abrams mystery box. You kept introducing all these interesting questions, and you do answer a lot of them, but there are things that we want to see play out, and you just didn't get that with episodes 25 and 26. And I don't know if it was burnout, I don't know if it was just running out of time, but Anno is just like, I'm tapped. Like, if I'm gonna do these last 2 episodes, I'm going to examine everything like within me, and I'm going to be extremely ambiguous, abstract, and all of that as he explores not just Shinji, but some of these other characters as well. I'll say this, I think he actually does a masterful job kind of interweaving 25 and 26 with the events of End of Evangelion.
100%. And it makes it enjoyable to see those moments where we were inside the characters' heads and then see what's happening in real life. Mm-hmm. I enjoy it a lot more having the end. But dear Lord, without it, I would have been furious. And I was furious for that short period of time. But
I think that best was encapsulated by your initial comment at the end of episode 24 when I was bracing you for 25, 26, and you're like, people, don't be ridiculous. Don't threaten a person's life or to burn down their studio. We watched 25 and you came back and you're like, you know what? I would have thrown the first Molotov. I was like, that about summed up what I was worried your reaction would be.
Hey, look, I was on his side for a little bit, but damn it if we are.
Yep.
It's like I've got this giant war that I've been teasing you on for so long, but instead of watching this war happen, we're going to focus on a family of buddies.
Yeah.
You're like, what does this have to do with it? Hey, stop showing me the fucking buddies. I want to see what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely left you with more than a little bit to be desired. And so it is great to finally have that come back. And I agree, if there wasn't anything, if there was no End of Evangelion, we just had the series and then eventually the rebuilds, I don't think I would have given a crap about the rebuilds. I would have been like, yeah, okay, unless you promise you're going to actually like give it an ending this time. I don't know, because like, yes, now that you've seen End of Evangelion, you can maybe draw more from 25 and 26 to kind of see like where he's going, like what Shinji's ultimate kind of realization is, what the lessons and all that are from it, like what Anno was trying to get across. But by itself, it was not going to be satisfying. And it's like, I hope that was good and therapeutic for you, like self-healing for you to like understand that, like come to that realization, because your fan base certainly didn't help your overall stress by like lashing out in anger. And Anno, I think he took that to heart. It took a little bit of time before they came back and did that. It was not originally planned to do an End of Evangelion. And then even before they did End of Evangelion, they came back with the Death True, which was like a short, again, like 80-minute movie that was essentially summarizing, like a 2-hour summary essentially of the series. And they had that in then like a theatrical release. And so like, not spoilers here, but later on in this movie, you eventually get a glimpse of a little bit of a reality glimpse, and you see like a theater and you see people kind of restless and frustrated. That was literally a screening from the Death True series. So it's like, it was hotly anticipated that like, oh my God, they are coming back with more Evangelion. And then, like, what they got was a recap movie. And even though they knew End of Evangelion was coming, it just further kind of, like, pissed off a certain segment of the fan base with that impatience and just kind of thinking, like, I don't think this guy's got it anymore. I don't think he knows how he wants to end this. And he's just kind of spinning his wheels, dragging people along with this, And so I think he absolutely had a lot to prove. And by the time he gets to the End of Evangelion, he's kind of like, you know what? I'll give you what you want, but I'm going to make you regret asking for it at times. Like, I'm going to absolutely take everything I think you love and I'm going to tear it to pieces. And it is striking in this movie, especially with the foundation. Even if you could watch this movie without the series, I don't think it would have the impact, because it's the fact that you've seen these characters evolve through, 26 episodes, or in the case of Asuka, like 18 episodes, because she came in like episode 8 or something. You've seen them evolve and grow, and when shit starts going down, it's going down, and you see very quickly no one is safe.
Yeah, it's definitely, which, I mean, we get that in 25, 26. We know that people are, lives are on the line.
Yeah.
But we don't really get to see it go down. And yeah, it's brutal at times, for sure.
So how would we sort of give like a quick spoiler-free, almost summary, condensed explanation of kind of the plot of this? Do you want to take a stab at that, or do you want me to try and summarize it?
I'll do my best. It's going to be really short and sweet. So this is the time after Karu's death, and we are going to get to the point where instrumentality is happening. We get somewhat of an understanding of what instrumentality is, and then we get this final fight that we've been waiting for between Gendo and Seele. And then we could just get to see how everybody dies. Yeah. Which we already knew was happening.
Yeah, that's a pretty good encapsulation there. What I like with this too is getting more to see how Seele is actually fighting back immediately. Like, every time we've seen conflict with them and Gendo in the series, it really felt like Seele didn't have much to offer. You know what I mean? Like, they seemed like they were like dim-witted, almost outmatched. and sending Karu in episode 24 right into their Nerve HQ, like, that was like their like, all right, chips to the center of the table, we're going for this. We don't care what the risk is. But really, in their battles before then, you didn't really get much of an impression that like they were as much a threat to Gendo. It kind of felt like Gendo was in charge of everything. And man, oh man, did their counterpunch after everything with Kaoru. If you thought that was their like, no, we're all in, we're going all out. Nah, they send in a threat that, honestly, I think it's ingenious the way they do it, because it's a threat you don't really think about as viable. When you're fighting angels, this entire franchise, this entire thing, like fighting these giant, borderline godlike creatures, I say godlike, their DNA-wise is very much like humans, but in terms of their abilities and size and all of that, when you're only trained to fight those things, having an actual armed, like, insurrection, essentially, at your base, like, that's intense. They have, like, multiple entities, like, coming in, like, not just soldiers from the Japanese military and things like that. You have UN soldiers, you have agents from, like, the associated agents and everything from the other branches of Nerve. Like, they try and use Nerve locations 1 and 2 to hack the Magi initially, and when that fails, that's when they're like, all right, screw it, send in the military, blow everything to shit, get everything in there, kill the pilots. Basically, we're just taking everything. The only thing they really want to protect, it seems like, is the Magi computer, which is kind of interesting, really, when it's like, but that doesn't factor into instrumentality, so why do they care? Or is that just like what they have to tell? Because Seele can't show their full hand, I guess, so maybe they have to make it sound like, no, of course we have to protect the Magi, like when they're telling the Japanese military and stuff, even though they really don't care. But it's brutal, because you see these people who are not trained to deal with hand-to-hand combat, people like in the Nerve Command Center, just getting gunned down, and it's ruthless. They're like unarmed, they're like surrendering, hands up, getting gunned down. They're getting set on fire at their workstations. Like, it is absolute bloodbath. And you're just like, wow, it's impressive to see that you guys are like the last line of defense against like these otherworldly threats. But as they had mentioned once before, their ultimate final threat kind of ends up being their fellow man.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the Magi real quick. So when they discussed the Magi, and I went back and watched this today, they said that they have 5 other Magi that are attacking the ones at Nerve HQ.
Yeah.
I believe the reason for that is because, and really where they kind of got lucky enough to where the pilots are not operating when they start. So really, the way they started made sense, because if they went all out with a full-scale attack, they are expecting that they're going to send Avas immediately. And if an Ava's out there, you're screwed. Like, you're pretty outnumbered, regardless of how much military offense you've got. That Ava's defense is going to crush you. And their play to get the Magi inside of Nerve HQ means that once they've got the Magi, they have headquarters, and headquarters has the ability to disable things that are going on in an Ava. Just like we can cut out a pilot from an Ava, we can cut off their link.
Yeah.
So if they have opposition, and their main opposition is going to be those Avas, but they have control of the Magi, then they don't have to worry about the Avas anymore, because the only Ava that could possibly be a threat at this point would be Unit 1. But it would disable Unit 2 guaranteed, and most likely would be able to at least stall Unit 1.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So, yeah, this is going to be we don't waste any time. The events of this film, which is kind of like the TV movie version of episodes 25, 26, that kind of are a soft replacement for 25, 26, although you could find the moment where it's like, if you pause here, you could insert episode 25 here if you really wanted to, the original series 25. But it kind of works in 2 parts, which is why it's like an 86-minute movie, and why you get the interesting thing with the mid-credit roll instead of an end credits. But it's really right on the heels of what happened with Kaoru, and it moves fast. Like we already kind of glossed over the starting point. You have Shinji just kind of moodily staring out, same lake he was staring at before at the end of 24, talking with Misato, and you have like a traffic light snap off of the pole and splash into the water, and that mirrors Kaoru's head popping off in episode 24 when he died. And Shinji he's a wreck. Like, he doesn't know what to do. We know he had that conversation with Misato, kind of like trying to understand basically why he really deserved to be the one to live and everything. He feels isolated from everyone. He kind of feels like disconnected from Misato, who's not reading really how to respond to what he needs. He obviously, knowing now the truth about Rei, he can't really approach Rei, and it's not even the version of Rei that he had any sort of connection with. So she's completely off bounds to him, essentially. Asuka's in a coma. Kaoru, the one person he did connect with, is dead. It's like, he has no one. And they even make a point of saying his other friends from school have moved away. Like, the entire city is basically evacuated now, other than the people who operate Nerve. And so he's completely alone. And in that vulnerability, Shinji is going to seek an interesting moment of relief?
Comfort?
Comfort. He's going to turn to a familiar friend, so to speak. A little 5-knuckle shuffle. But what he ends up doing is he goes and visits Asuka in the hospital. This is like a tonal whiplash, and it's why, like, as we were starting the movie, even before the movie, I was telling you, I was like, you might think you're ready. You're not ready. Because this makes very clear, very fast, like, this is not the same ballpark that we've been playing in with the TV series. Like, we are not going to hold back in this. He goes to Asuka's room. She's catatonic, comatose, essentially. It's not like she's not on a ventilator, but she's just unresponsive, has like the heart monitor set up and everything. And he's just like pleading with her to like talk to him, just to like help him. And that's really a theme throughout this, is Shinji, as his world is collapsing, the person he's turning to is Asuka, and he's just pleading with her. And it's kind of like, it's kind of sad. Like, you can tell he's just completely crumbling. And then abruptly, as he's just pleading with her, like, call me an idiot, call me whatever, like, just talk to me, don't leave me alone. He, like, jerks her, and she, like, rolls over where she's facing him, and
he jerks her all right.
and her button, her blouse, completely pops open, and you're just like, oh, okay, there's Asuka's boobs. Okay, Shinji doesn't know what to do. Wait, what's that shot? Is the door locked? Wait. No. Okay, they might imply, but then, and then you cut to Shinji's hand, and you're like,
What the f***? I didn't know Shinji Splooge was gonna be on the bingo card for this movie.
okay. Wow. Your reaction to that initially,
I couldn't focus on what was happening after that because I was like, did that just happen?
yeah, I think so, and I'll drop the audio in from that because we did run audio of our live reactions at the time.
That was a deep line from Fusky, though.
I'm like still stuck on the first.
I told you weren't ready. Do you want to pause and talk about it?
Yeah, let's talk about this real quick.
Okay, yeah.
What? Where did this come from?
It's very out of nowhere, and Shinji's reaction is basically in the Netflix dub is, I'm the lowest of the low. And it's like, that's a really weird, clunky line. I wish they had just left it with the Japanese one. I guess they did it just to avoid the F-bomb. But the original line is, I'm so f***ed up. And it's like, that's a valid reaction. Comatose girl, unconscious, you're gonna lock the door and just J.O. while like hunched over her unconscious body. It's just like, wow, okay, well, I get that you're 14 years old. I get that you're seeking any sort of warm, positive feeling you can, but much like post-nut clarity, I guess, Shinji realizes right after the deed is done that like, oh, wow, I hate myself even more now because now I'm just repulsed by myself and these like urges. Yeah, it's a tone setter.
I'm going to take this a little darker too, because as I was watching this again today, I thought to myself, we're really making the assumption that he was jacking off. He could have been having sex with her, and I don't think that's what happened. I think that he was jerking off. He very well could have been doing a Kill Bill type situation. And then, last minute, pulls back. I don't think that's what happened.
Yeah,
but I don't see any evidence that it didn't.
Yeah, well, we know later on this is somewhat light spoiler here, through instrumentality, when we do get a glimpse of that again, if you saw our reviews of 25-26, instrumentality does at least begin. Shinji and Asuka, it's like all of your flaws and everything in your heart is laid bare. And Asuka, later on, when confronting Shinji, is fully aware of what happened, and what she says is, go ahead, I know what you did. Go ahead, do it again. Jerk off right in front of me. That's what she says. So,
oh, damn it, I forgot. Yes.
She does say jerk off, not that, but yes. So
that would have been so much darker, though.
It would have been darker. You are right.
You would have been like, holy crap, that is... Whoa.
I would have been like, I don't even want to tell your story anymore, Shinji. That would have been Anno's ultimate revenge, though. Like, if you found anything redeeming at all left in Shinji, that would have been the last straw, probably. That'll do it. Unless he had then smothered her or something, in which case that would have definitely done it. Yeah, so while all of this is going on, as crazy as it is, Misato is basically going full underground hacker mode. She's like in like this server room, it's like chilled, just like servers. You can't overheat the room and everything with all those servers running. And so you can see her, she's like hunched in, like typing away on the typewriter. She's like got the floppy disk or whatever in her mouth, and just hacking away. You can see her breath every time she's exhaling, and she's uncovering kind of the full truth here. And we're coming out of the gate swinging with some realizations. Now, obviously, 25, 26, we know a lot of this stuff, but I think the way it presents it here is a little bit more clear. So humanity, and it happened, like you said earlier, after the Shinji scene in the hospital, you were like you were so distracted by everything that happened there that like you stopped. The first time you paused the movie and looked over at me when we were watching, you were like, I need you to explain everything that just happened because I'm still trying to process this over here. Like I missed all of that. One of the things Misato says is that humanity is actually the 18th angel because we come from the same place. Adam, not the same exact. The angels come from Adam, we come from Lilith, who is like Adam. By that extension, that logic, humanity is the 18th angel. Why the 18th, even though we are not as new as the other angels that we saw along the way? I don't know. Just for the sake of argument, because we're only now like establishing, like, yeah, humanity is also angels. Oh yeah, we're the most recent one that we're saying this about, so we'll say 18th. But yeah, humanity is an angel, and we come from Lilith, who arrived on Earth after Adam, and Adam and the angels were supposed to be who inherited essentially the planet. Like Adam was the progenitor, and the angels were supposed to inherit it. Something happened, humanity ended up, Lilith and humanity then by extension came instead, and that messed everything up.
The best part about a chilled server room, do you know what that is? It's that you can keep your beer cold while you're hacking. Because she is such an alcoholic.
Yeah.
She can't even break into a facility without bringing a beer.
She is impressive. There's also a conversation with the Sele figureheads again, and they're just basically talking about the promised time and like how they're going to move forward. They don't need Adam. They don't need Lilith. They're going to move forward their own way. And do you have exactly what they said here since you watched it this morning or earlier today?
I didn't catch the exact line, but they're just talking about that they're going with Haley Unit 1 for their plan for human instrumentality.
Yep. So we're going to push ahead, and we're going to initiate human instrumentality. And yeah, we get the initial hacking attempt, but the reason they're not able to, it kind of, first of all, it's reminiscent a little bit of that supercomputer angel we saw in like episode 14. Yeah, very reminiscent of that. And the only reason they're not just completely up shit creek is because they turn to Risuko, which is like, okay, well, we're going to give her something more to do. She's been basically in jail ever since destroying all the test tube rays. So they have no choice. They're going to have to turn to her. And as she's begrudgingly going about this, she's kind of asking herself, like, is it pathetic that I'm actually helping? Like, in spite of everything he's done, here I am still doing what he's asking of me. But it's like, I mean, your life's on the line. They're going to kill everybody. So this is a self-preservation thing. You're not doing it for Gendo. It just happens to also help Gendo. And when he asks her, she's pretty cold to him in a sense where it's clear, like, she's not doing it for him, I would think. So, I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that? Like, did you see that and take away, like, oh, her character is just kind of, like, crawling back to Gendo a little bit?
No, I mean, it's self-preservation at that point in time. It's like everyone's depending on you. Gendo is a part of that plan, but
yeah,
that doesn't really mean anything at this point because, you know, she lives, she dies, choice is hers. And everybody else that she's worked with and is friends with and that isn't a huge piece of shit's life is on the line too.
Yep. And so I like the misdirection here because it even happened like in our back and forth, like kind of commentating on the movie. in typical fashion, right? We get down to like the final seconds of like, oh, they're gonna hack the Magi. We're down to like the last little bit. If they get Casper, that's gonna be it. It's the same thing, right? The woman and her held out until the end was the theme of episode 14, the last computer that was designed after, or basically built with the personality more or less of Risuko's mother. Gets down to like the final seconds, and then Risuko using a back-end code 666, mind you, which is just a perfect little foreshadow, even if it's not like the code is what does it, prevents the hacking. It basically rewrites the code in some way, similar again to that episode where it buys them, I think they said like 62 hours of time before the Magi can be hacked.
Of course, they bought themselves enough time to conveniently work everything out. Oh no.
My sweet summer child.
Oh no.
Which again, kind of shows how serious Sele is being, because even though they're still going to eventually win this battle of wills if they just wait it out, they're like, we tried to do this the peaceful way, now we're just going to send in everything. We're just gonna violently overthrow this entire thing, and that's where we start getting all of the covert ops and the bloody chaos. Like it is immediate, and it is like at the time you were like, yes, always saved in the final seconds, and I was like, not really. It's a nice misdirection. You think because the series kind of conditioned you to that thinking, you're like, yeah, everything's fine. Now we're going to have time to regroup, reassess, and nope, 62 hours means nothing because they got about 62 seconds before the killing starts.
Yeah, and it gets intense fast. Like there is no taking a hostage. There is no women are off limits. Everyone is going to get shot execution style or burned alive. Like they are not messing around. I mean, the first kill, I think, is when the guy gets a knife through the back from some mysterious place that this guy appeared from, as we discussed.
Yep.
I guess he could have jumped down and then stabbed him. Still, yeah, it would have had been like ninja shoes on.
Yeah. It's absolute just ambush style offense. And it's kind of, it is interesting because we talked about how, like, the only time we've ever seen human forces fighting in the series was that Asuka introduction episode all the way back in episode 8 when you saw the Navy, the UN Navy, trying to deal with the Angel, and they were just woefully unmatched. Now, you could say that. They technically are the ones who destroy it in the end, the Angel, by firing, the 2 warships, like, firing their cannons into its mouth after they, like, set the trap, basically. But as far as them like dealing with it on their own, woefully unprepared, incapable of handling it. And here, it's kind of the flip. Like they make a point of saying, we aren't trained for this. In fact, isn't it weird that like our intruder budget was slashed or something, cut in half last month? I'm like, wow, 1 month of training went really far. Because yeah, you guys are not prepared for shit. And like aside from like Maya, who's the little kind of mousy girl in the command center, her mentor is Risuko. Aside from her, who just outright says she can't really bring herself even to the idea of killing people because like the only thing she's ever wrapped her head around like having to actually fight is angels, and killing a person just feels wrong. Like morally, she can't even process that. Aside from her, the others at least were willing to like stand and fight. They just aren't like prepared or trained to do it, not in near the same way. And it's interesting. I kind of wish we had harkened back to I think it was episode. Specific episodes are tough, but the episode where you saw the alternate company like doing the nuclear powered Ava basically. Trying to like get the budgeting for that, and you saw how Risuko and Gendo actually sabotaged that to make sure that their funding wasn't screwed with. It would have been cool if you had one or more of those corporations somehow involved with like, oh, now here's where we get them back. Or would that have seemed too busy, you think?
I don't know. Yeah, there was a lot going on. I mean, I like I like the idea, but I feel like you'd need to string it out even longer to make that happen without feeling like it's like just another thing that was being shoehorned in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like I'm saying have the reactor Ava there. I just mean like the idea of like that extra support, but I guess they didn't have a military, so yeah.
Yeah, so we get this order of all the Ava pilots are going to die.
But my sincere question is, did we really need all this with what we got from 25-26?
So that is the military's order is kill the pilots because they realize that this is their biggest opposition as far as if they've got a military front and they're trying to get control of HQ, one thing's going to stop them. That's Ava's. So easiest way to do that, go kill the kids that are the pilots. Pretty easy choice. So Misato figures that out relatively quickly, and she says, okay, let's put Shinji in Unit 1, let's put Asuka in Unit 2, dump her at the bottom of the ocean since she's pretty much useless as she is. At least that'll keep her protected. So that is her being, I would say that's not a self-preservation. I would say that's not even protecting the end of the world. I would say that is her motherly instinct kicking in, and that is her legitimately protecting Shinji and Asuka. I mean, Asuka does not matter. Even though she does in the scheme of things that play out, at that time, Asuka's pretty much a paperweight to her. So that was a motherly move. It didn't have anything to do with strategy, in my opinion.
Because she's already realized at this point, she's already commented that she basically was a failed guardian. And so she's already kind of had to contend with the feelings of guilt knowing she had failed both Shinji and Asuka. And I think she understands she in some ways failed Asuka more than Shinji. And so, yeah, it's her having that awareness and trying to at least protect them. Because, yeah, Asuka in the hospital, sitting duck. So, like, I don't care. Throw in her Ava, put it at the bottom of the lake, and at the very least, she'll be protected. Not for long, because they do find out she's there quickly, even though she can't seemingly at the time activate Unit 2. But it's at least something. And they can't find Rei, because Rei's floating in the lava lamp, basically, of all the dismembered Rei parts. And you're just like, oh, that is metal. That is, I don't even know what to think of that. That is the most morbid thing I can think of, like floating in the gooey abyss of all of your own clones, and they're decapitated and just completely disintegrating bodies. Like, oh, okay, that's nightmare fuel if you think about it from that first person perspective.
It's a lot like taking a bath.
Yeah, to the nth power, perhaps. But I kind of
in your own filth.
Yeah. It's also kind of like she's looking at it, though, and thinking, like, considering what she ends up doing shortly thereafter, and it's not immediate, it kind of feels like putting top of mind for herself everything Gendo has done, right? Like, because she is Rei 3, she does not have the first-person memories of Rei 1 or Rei 2. She knows that there was a Rei 1, Rei 2, but she doesn't know, like, what Gendo did. She just knows the general relationship to him. And so looking at all of this, even though he didn't cause like the death of all of these basically vessels, looking at it and understanding, like, had Risuko not done what she did, he was never going to let me go. He was never going to let me like just die. And that's what she wants. So yeah, she's basically, whereas before we'd seen her kind of like start to kind of crush the glasses in her hand, she kind of stopped herself. She's not gonna play by Gendo's game much longer. And so I think this moment, as brutal and dark as it is, kind of when you think about it in a literal sense, I think it's kind of her confronting it and saying, like, this is what he is and what he's going to do. He will not let me go. Only I can like sever this connection. If I want to get away from him, I have to do it. It's a self-agency she's never shown.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, especially really, you will realize that literally sitting in your bloody body parts. It's like, wow, that's a pretty good reminder. So we get into the next section here, which is Shinji being a little bitch, which
Shinji is broken.
He's really good at.
Shinji is broken. Get used to hearing that.
Yeah, so Shinji is hiding out. They've got to find him. So, Masato's behind the scenes on the run. And then we get to Gendo putting Fuyutsuki in charge. And Fuyutsuki says something along the lines of,
give Yui my regards.
Yeah, send my regards to Yui. Because he realizes, this is the end of the line for him. Their plan is the only way that, they're going to get out at this point. But they're pretty much, they're fucked.
Yeah. There's nothing they're going to be able to do to stop this infiltration. And the Sele is basically playing the hand that says, either we win or everybody dies. All of us go here. So there's no escaping what's going to happen. It's just Gendo can go try and make their plan somehow work in time, but it's not going to be something where they have any moment, Fuyutsuki's never going to see Yui again. I mean,
yeah,
essentially, we kind of get that, but you know what I mean? It is the end of the line for that. So, yeah, it's things are escalating quickly.
Wow.
Yep.
This is exciting.
What was the shot we came back from here, after Fuyutsuki here? Was this when Shinji's in the stairwell?
Well, we start out with I think the bake light is next. So Masato bake lights the whole facility, trying to block everybody off from being able to get into Nerve H, the center of Nerve HQ, right? Mm-hmm. I believe that's what she's trying to do. She's covering all the tunnels, everything. I mean, including Ava 1 is covered in bake light.
Yep, and then this is a red, it almost looks like blood, but it hardens like concrete, in a matter of seconds. So everyone there flooding in this, even their own people who might still be alive, it's sorry, we just got to try and stop this from happening because we're fucked otherwise. So there will be no funerals. This is how we're doing this. This is our only desperation shot to stop this infiltration.
Yeah, and so Gendo, after Rei's out of this, bathing in her own blood situation, this is where Gendo is actually commencing the activation, which we kind of saw in episode 25. I believe we did see that real life scene of him saying, now's the time. If I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and watch for sure, but it at least mirrors something that's happening.
Yeah. Oh wait. So you going into when Gendo's got his hand in everything?
No, not at that part.
Okay.
Just
I was just making sure we weren't skipping stuff because that's the part of 26 when we get to that.
Yeah. No. Just when he starts his conversation with Rei, he gets her out of the bath and it's hey, now's the beginning. So the firing squad finds Shinji and does this thing that pisses me off in every single movie known to mankind, which they even fire a shot, doesn't hit Shinji. There's 3 guys in a kill squad full of people that we've seen executing every last person that is standing, regardless. And they stop to have a conversation with him before they shoot him.
It's called plot armor, son.
No.
You gotta be the protagonist to have that shit. Have that shit on lock.
I like it because it gives Masato her line.
I love when Masato has a gun.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's nothing personal.
Damn. That's legit.
But it was literally a Masato line delivery. That's the whole reason that scene exists. Because they say,
it's nothing personal. Nothing personal,
kid. Masato fucking annihilates everybody, goes up to the guy that said it, puts a gun to his jaw, says, nothing personal. Boom! Blows his head out the back of his skull.
First of all, she's sprinting down a hallway firing shots from her pistol or whatever. And they've got rifles just opening fire, and she's weaving between all of that. She's dodging bullets, picking them off, and then she gets up to the one, gets the barrel under his chin and then, throws his own quip back at him before she blows him away. And it's just like, wow, Misato's been capable of this the whole time, huh? All right. Very, very cool. They are giving her a lot of cool points in this. Like her entire performance this movie, 99% of her performance this movie is like, man, they could not be portraying her in a more cool, badass light right now. We'll get to that interesting stuff. the maybe exception to that.
And I really do feel like this scene, at least in some way, is what inspired the dodge this line in The Matrix. Like watching it again, I was like, that 100%. They mixed the phrasing a little bit, but that's absolutely where they got that from.
Yep. Yeah, it's a badass moment for her. And even before she like runs at them in that, you see her before she like heads out of the command center to go find Shinji, when she realizes like they find him on the camera and he's like, oh, he's not moving. He's like unresponsive. And you see her like cock the gun, and like the animation of her cocking the gun is just so great. Like it's beautifully done. Like you feel the weight of it and everything. Like it's just a really well done thing. You're like, oh, she means business. And then actually seeing her like then, in action like that for the first time was just like, God, man, the only other time you've ever seen her like in a physical action sense was that espionage type episode we talked about with the reactor Ava, where she has to go inside the thing and like deactivate it herself. Mm-hmm. And that's a very different type of action,
Yeah, she's a badass for sure. So we get to this next part. Misato is going hard on Shinji always because she, for some reason, thinks that this is the way to get through to him by yelling at him. And my guess is
it's just
that
stress.
Has something to do with, I don't know if it's stress. I feel like it could be parenting. I feel like that could have been like the way her father treated her in stressful situations. Or maybe it's how she wishes people responded to her when she needs to take action. Not that we ever really feel that. Like, she's pretty self-starter in everything we see her in. I mean, she's got her own problems, but she doesn't ever hesitate very much. She's always quick to action. So she tries that so much, and I'm just like, you're never going to get through to him like this. Stop yelling at him, which, again, can go back to the writer. That could very much be just like, oh, that's how my father was, or that's how my mother was. It's like, and we know that he has a pretty sordid past with his father, his dad. Yep. So that very well could be that same type of behavior getting thrown in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've kind of commented on this before, but I think Misato and Asuka are a lot more alike than we really give credit to, maybe. Like, they both have kind of similar traumas from their childhoods, and I think maybe Misato's handling of Asuka as a guardian was kind of trying to respond to her in the way that she wanted to be responded to. She didn't want to talk about her traumas. She didn't want to unpack that stuff. She wanted to try and move forward and like distance from that thing that bothered her. And so I think she maybe tried to apply a similar sort of thing when she saw Asuka insisting, hey, I'm an adult, look at me and treat me like I'm an adult. I think she tried to do that. I think that was what she's like, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I wanted. I didn't want people looking at me like I was some helpless child, because when she was mute in a psych ward for 2 years or whatever, not speaking, that's how everyone saw her. They looked at her and they pitied her. And I think that's probably something that bothered her, and almost led to this overcompensation that became her character later. They talk about how she always, never stopped talking afterwards, and, wouldn't address serious stuff. And if she realized something was serious, she would almost like reflexively like pull away or even run from it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, as we discussed earlier, she figures out about the second impact, which this is really like the second half of her letting us know what she found out. So we already kind of touched on some of this stuff, like the 18th angel. They also talk about the second impact being when Adam was being reverted back to an egg-light state. And then the other thing here that I liked the line was, that the other angels were the other possibilities of what humanity could have been, which is an interesting way to look at it. It's like, how would we have been different? How would we have acted? How would things have, it's like,
Yeah.
how big of a change would that have actually made?
And there's a whole background lore that's not even able to be explored in the series or End of Evangelion. We talked about it that night, so maybe that's something for like whether it's a bonus segment at the end of part 2 of this or its own bonus thing entirely, not just a segment, but like an episode, kind of just like a lore deep dive, like deep lore deep dive, filling in a lot of those gaps of who is Adam, who is Lilith, where did they come from, like what do these things mean, how are the angels different from humanity, and like why are they different yet genetically so similar, things like that.
Yeah.
For now, we'll just focus on what's said in this movie.
So we get to this next part here. I believe this is where Masato is showing Shinji, or not necessarily showing him, just driving by the old Evas, so we see their spines and their heads and their helmets. And Masato is telling Shinji that he needs to eradicate the Evas because that's their way to survive, essentially stopping Seilei's plan from taking action. And then we hear the conversation between people, which I like to say inside of a giant grandfather clock. There's this ticking pendulum that's just in the middle of this ungodly large room that looks like it was made for giants. And I'm not really sure who we're talking to at this point. Who is this?
Yeah, I'm not sure who it is. Maybe it's just another, like Gendo is the head of the Japanese branch of Nerve. Maybe it's just another Nerve branch, like the German one. Because, well, no, it may be the American one, because he does reference the Chinese and the Germans when they're talking about like the facility, who to sell it to. So he has to be somehow related to Nerve to have that kind of...
Well, and they're definitely not in on the plan for instrumentality.
No, they're not
either.
Seilei. They're Nerve, and only Gendo knows what Seilei is doing. So, yeah. So I think it's the Americans, and they're talking about like what to do with the facility, and they're like, oh, we can just sell it to the Germans or the Chinese. Nah, we'll just let it rot for 20-something years, and then we'll deal with it. Like, that's kind of what they're talking about. But I like to say, whereas Gendo is obsessed with telling people that length is what matters, this man is all about the girth. Because his room is short ceilings, unbearably wide, and you just have the pendulum clock, whereas Gendo's is the tall room, both of them similar decor in terms of tiny desk, no other furniture, but yeah, difference in approach, I guess.
It reminds me of that Rick and Morty episode where I believe the president is trying to get close, and they're like, they said you only needed a giant t-shirt because you like to swing your dick around. I was like, yeah, that's kind of how you feel when these people are in these giant rooms. It's like compensating for something a little bit here.
Yeah. A little bit.
So we get into the next part. Asuka is in the bottom of the lake, and she is asking, don't kill me. Just talking about the situation, not that there's a threat outside of the military.
Well, they've found where she is in just a moment.
Yes.
They start firing shells down there, like depth charges.
Yeah. And she is controlling the Eva, even though she doesn't know it. So she's in the fetal position. It's in the fetal position. She's back in control. She just isn't aware because she's so in her own head and thinks that she's worthless that she doesn't even realize that she could do whatever she wants at this point. And we get this big reveal, which is another moment to me. And I think I felt better about it the first watch.
What does her mom have to do with? She's Unit 2 or Unit...
Her soul is in Unit 2. But
what?
But where is... Mm-hmm. And that realization...
Was I supposed to pick that up that fast?
I didn't like it when I watched it again. I think that this was one of those things that I feel was very shoehorned in unnecessarily. So in Eva Unit 2 is Asuka's mother, and that is why she is the way she is. So she had lost essentially part of her soul to this Ava, the motherly aspect of it. And she's been in the Ava the whole time. I don't love this. I wanted Asuka to regain something without feeling like she got a handout, which this very much feels like a handout type situation. It's like, did you do this on your own? No, I had to help you.
True.
But
her character has been desperately reaching out for people for a while, and it's been going unreciprocated. She was not getting, like, no one was reaching back to help her. Not Misato. Shinji sort of tried, but didn't really know what to do, and so he just kind of pulled away. Kaji has been ghosting her even before he died. So to me, it kind of feels like she needed someone to reach back and help her. And really, the root of all of that was she needed her mother, who she didn't get to have, and that it is her mother who does it, is like a big uplifting thing for her. They did also foreshadow a little bit in 24 that the only reason Kaoru was able to take control of Unit 2 was because the soul within Unit 2 had receded within itself, which comes after Asuka had basically completely severed that connection with Unit 2, basically calling it just a dumb doll that was supposed to do what she said. Wouldn't be any problems. Like, she didn't treat it like it was like an extension of herself almost. And so once that happened, it was like the part of the soul within Unit 2, and they even say the phrase soul, went dormant, and that's why Kaoru was able to pilot it. He even says, like, yeah, luckily it went dormant, so I was able to take control.
yeah, I don't know. It just felt so much to me like, it's like you go through, it's like no one will back me up. No one's there for me. No one's there for me. No one's there for me. And then finally, like, coming to the realization that I don't need someone there for me. I'm enough. And as long as I believe in myself, like, it's like that felt like that would have been more motivational to me than it's like, oh, you needed somebody this whole time? Here you go. Here's somebody.
Yeah. But I would almost...
Now I get, it's like, I get it from both sides.
Sure.
I wanted it to go a little differently.
And that's fair. I think for me, I look at it and I say, we joke all the time that, like, for everything that's riding on these kids and these missions, the one thing Nerve doesn't, the one place they spare the expense is a therapist. Like, these kids are so emotionally damaged and broken. They're put through hell. No one knows how to take care of them properly or treat them like people. And to me, it almost works as like a sign of, like, look what would happen if you just had people genuinely in their corner and, like, telling them that they're there for them, that they believe in them, and all of that. Like, Asuka doesn't just, like, regain form. She goes to, like, the height of her ability and power. She's busting out, like, moves in her Ava that she's never even done before, and it's just instinct now. She's not even having to think about anything. And you compare that to where she was the last 5 to 8 episodes before she had her complete breakdown, and it's like, back then she was losing fights because she was making mistakes where you're like, she never made these mistakes before, or she was never slow to react, and yet now she kind of is. Like, she's losing a step every single episode, it felt like. And this was not just her back in form. This was like, no, now everything's clicking, everything's there, because she just has this reinforcement behind her. She finally feels like, if I'm falling, there's something there to catch me. And before, it was like, if I fall, everything goes,
Man, this is insane.
Dude, we're still in episode 25 if you want to count what's the TV show.
If anything, it's just showing, like, what would have been possible if they had just had the proper infrastructure and care behind these kids. And asking Misato to be that was just never going to be enough.
Yeah. I mean, how are they supposed to know? You would think that you can trust your local alcoholic to, for child rearing.
Yeah.
But guess not.
Yeah, no. Apparently babysitters are required to do a little bit more.
So we get into, she starts whooping ass and laying waste, and the Avas come in. So Sele's Avas, which are all the same, and they are quite frightening. They've got wings. They've got scary little faces.
No eyes.
They are not effing around, and they've all got swords. So, your first thought is, oh shit, this is not good. They're literally flying around her in a circle, The music's very scary.
The sounds they make are haunting. Yeah. Like they're unnerving. Like if you like when it cuts to the shot of Fuyutsuki in the command center watching them on the screen, and you have that like kind of audio distortion of them you can hear as well, just the way that they're like, it's almost like a cross between like cooing and like almost like a laugh. It's just so unnerving. Like, you know, now the sort of trend in like horror games is like, oh, analog horror. That sound to me feels like it belongs in analog horror. Like that sound when he's like, you can hear them like on the screen that Fuyutsuki is watching. It's just like, oh, it's just so chilling and unnerving. And the visual of them, you know, Asuka's there standing in front of HQ, so you have the pyramid there, and they're just circling overhead. And it's just like, shit, it's going to be 9-on-1. And she just, like she even says, just woke up from a coma basically like an hour ago. And now it's like, here you go.
Yeah. And doesn't have a plug at this time, too, because the fight with the military disconnected it. So she's at less than 5 minutes. She's 9 angels deep. Shit's going to go down. And she starts laying waste. Back to Shinji. Guess what he's doing? Getting dragged by Masato, literally by the hand, like a child that won't come when you're trying to get him into the store. It's like, I don't want to go, Mom. No, you're going with me. We got to go get groceries. He's being a little bitch, and I am sick of little bitch Shinji. But we finally start moving, and gunfire goes off. Masato gets hit. Mm-hmm. This is the first time I think Masato's ever been shot that we know of. And she goes into the room, and you can tell shit's not good. Like, Masato's on the floor, and Masato does not get knocked to the ground. So she tells Shinji everything's okay. And then we start to really get the parallel to episode 25 as they're having this conversation. She's telling him, this is time to make your own decisions. It's very much mirroring the introspective moment that we got in 25. Which Shinji talks about, being terrible. And he's like, I've done terrible things to Asuka. I wish at that moment, Masato was like, you have? What?
wait, what'd you do?
Forget that. Let's move past that one. I've done terrible things to Asuka. And what else does he mention? He mentions a couple other people, but just like down on himself. Like
he just goes through his usual, like, I'm a snake, a coward. There's a third one. It's like, I'm a snake, a coward, something. Basically, like, his usual spiel of, like, I'm awful, I'm horrible, no one likes me, no one should like me, I don't deserve whatever, I should just lay here and die, basically. That's kind of like where he's at, and he just has no will to live, basically. He's kind of like where Asuka was when she was laying in the tub, except she was basically mute when that was happening. He'll at least answer, but he's basically still amounting to the same thing.
And Masato's still pissed. She's still giving him the very firm talking to, I'm never going to forgive you if you don't do this. I'm going to come back and I'm pretty much going to haunt you. Like, you have to understand, like, I am never going to be okay with you if you don't move forward and make something happen here.
Yeah.
And then she changes tactics very quickly, very confusingly for the viewer, but there's
some opinions
down. Yeah, they're wrong unless there are opinions which are right. So she gives him the necklace and then kisses him.
Long kiss.
And
a long kiss.
That's how grown-ups kiss. We'll do the rest when you get back, alright?
What?
You're just still watching it, and you're like, whoa, I am really confused. This has never been something that's happened before or even thought that it was, with the exception of a couple of jokes Rasuko's way. And she tells Shinji, that's how adults kiss. And when you're done, we'll do the rest.
Yep, come back and we can do the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you and I have a different mindset on this than most other people. So you want to tell other people's perspective on this?
Yeah. So obviously it's a long kiss. It is not like a peck. Like, she is kissing him, like full force kiss and everything. And because there was the joke at the very beginning when she was talking about being a guardian for him and everything on the phone with Risuko, she's like, relax. It's not like I'm going to do anything with him or whatever. And Risuko is like yelling back, like, of course not. He's a kid. Why would you even say something like that? Then people look at like episode 23 and how when Rei 2 dies, she's trying to comfort Shinji in his room. She has no idea what to say. And she's like, I wish there was something I can say. All I know I can do is this. And she tries to take his hand and he pulls away and he's like, shouts at her to basically like, stop it. And then she goes and she tries to pet Pin. And when he also rejects her, she's like, oh, I see, anyone will do. I'm the one who's lonely. And so everybody, I think, because of this scene, recontextualizes episode 23 in that moment. And they basically come to the conclusion that Misato is, I don't know if pedo is the right word, but at the very least that there is some entertaining of a romantic involvement, something with Shinji. I feel like that's a major leap. Like, and I know we talked about it. You're on the same page as me. It's a leap. She's throwing everything against the wall, trying to motivate this kid. She tries to be sensible at first, like firm but sensible, telling him like, live on your feet and then you can die. Like, if you're going to die, do it on your feet, and then let come what will. And it doesn't matter what she's saying. He is basically unresponsive, or at in a more extreme example, he's outright like snapping back at her, basically like that she doesn't know him. She can't talk, she can't talk to him about it because he's a horrible person and he doesn't deserve to do anything. He should just die, blah, blah, blah. Everything she's saying, doesn't matter the approach. She gives a lot of good advice. If you take her dialogue in this movie to Shinji, she has 4 or 5 great nuggets of like wisdom where I'm like, that is a really well thought out, concise thing. I'm surprised Misato was able to do that multiple times, like in a pressure situation, and he's just not responding. And so it's kind of just like, fuck, okay, kid, you're 14, right? You've already acknowledged doing something horrible to Asuka. I assume it was sexual. Here's a symbol if you need a physical marker for like what you're fighting for. Here's my father's cross that means something to me. And now I'm going to like further try and reinforce that by basically trying to pit whatever hormones you have to motivate you to do something, anything, whatever. I'll kiss you and I'll even give the promise of more if you come back. I know I'm about to die. I know I'm bleeding out right in front of you. You're aware of it too, but I'm going to try and distract you from that just by playing whatever I can, because my character flaw is that I'm going to, by my own admission, weaponize my sexuality to play men to get them to do what I want. She does the same thing to the glasses guy in the command center to get him to help her do all this digging and hacking and find out all of this stuff about the real plan. She's trying to do the same thing here. Yes, it is her character flaw, but it's not like she's actually trying to follow through with it because she's wanting to follow through with it. It's purely like, we're about to die. The world's about to end. Kid, if you got to think you're getting nookie when you get back, so be it. I'll be dead when you get here, but at least you'll have tried, because that's better than you just sitting here and dying in 5 seconds.
Yeah, and after she gives him the kiss, he jolts out of it. Like, he's so taken back by what happened that you see him like almost fall back into the elevator.
Oh, she shoves him. She shoves him. She she doesn't give him a chance to think about it.
I feel like his reaction is very much like because of what happened. I mean, like, gosh, if you're like, wow, this girl's been taking care of me and like this whole time she's wanted to have sex with me, like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And we already know that regardless of how horrible the situation is and how sad he may be feeling, a little bit of action, takes his mind off of things. So it seems to give him the jump start that he needed.
Yeah. Yep. She shoves him into the elevator and closes the door. He starts to go up. She basically crumples to the floor And from that perspective, again, it's interesting that she does harken back to Asuka, which I think, again, is kind of in her final moments expressing like regret of how she handled that. She basically is like, it's really dirty down here. I guess if I had, I guess I should have taken Asuka's advice and changed the carpet in her room or something. And then she even kind of says something about Pin, whatever. And then she basically is asking Kaji, did I do the right thing? And then the floor explodes. And if you slow down the animation, her body is blown to bits. It's not just like a flash of explosion on the screen. It's like, no, if she wasn't already bleeding out, she is most certainly dead now. So, yeah.
And she's not alone either.
No, she's not. We have Rey, which I'm guessing, obviously, Rey 3, standing there for about a quarter of a second, standing there next to her. Doesn't even seem like she sees her or is aware of her, but catches a glimpse of Rey 3 and then explodes as that entire platform explodes as they're detonating that area. They don't get Shinji, but they do get Misato. So, yeah, and Shinji's on the elevator. He's trying to process what just happened. And then he kind of touches his lip, sees the blood, like, oh, yeah, like she's dying, dead. Like, it's just a further loss that now has to weigh on him, because now his emotions are even more complicated towards her, because he's like, I don't know what I feel now. My understanding of our relationship is very confused now. And now you're dead, so now I really don't know how to process this. It's just, It's all too much for him to handle, but it's like he does snap back to himself, because he snaps out of the numbness. Like when Rey 2 died and he's talking about like, I'm so sad, but the tears just won't come. This is like the first time that like the full walls break and he is just bawling again. Like, he's sobbing, he's inconsolable, but like he's feeling, which is, I feel like, a step in the right direction at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we get to the next part, and it's Rasuko, and she is pulling a gun on Gendo, who's standing next to Naked Rey, and she has a plan.
And who else is there? Where are they?
They are right in front of Lilith at this point in time. And her plan is that she has done something to the Magi, essentially built in a self-destruct as she was playing around in there earlier. And she is going to trigger a bomb that is going to kill all of them. So she hits the button. Her mother says no. Yeah. And Gendo is the choice. And boy, oh boy.
I feel like she should have seen it. I feel like she should have seen it coming, because it's the part of her mother that's a woman, not the part that's a mother, not the part that's a scientist. The most illogical part of her, the part that is a woman, is the one in which she installed this, because that was the last one standing earlier. So I'm like, are you surprised the part of her that's a woman is the one that stood by her former lover? I kind of feel like you should have guessed that of the 3 that might defy your coding, that would be the one. But yeah.
Yeah, so Gendo mouths something. He says, the subtitles say, I really did ... And then you hear him speak something. She calls him a liar. He pulls the trigger. She goes into the LCL.
Yep.
And Rasuko is dead. And while she's dying, she's not alone either. It's not just Gendo and Rey. Ghost Rey is over there as well. So Ghost Rey seems to be watching every death as it's happening.
Yep. I was very excited when I confirmed my theory on that. My further research on it. But that's for another segment or video or whatever. But yeah, Ghost Rey is there. And yeah, she's now popping up, interestingly, at a lot of these places where shit is going down. We cut back then to Asuka surface side, right? And she's going 9-on-1, and she's basically confirming, like, she's got like a minute 20 left of power. She figures out she has 20 seconds. Yeah, 20 seconds per enemy, and she basically just like, all right, I better get going. Like cracks the knuckles essentially, and good googly moogly, she is a house of fire, just vicious. And this is, as much as I praise the animation of this movie, and it is very deservedly so, the weight and movement of Unit 2 in its fight, whether it was with the military or against the mass-produced Evas, is just phenomenal. Like, you feel the weight of everything. Like, they do a great job with the weight and physics of it, where, like, when you see a shot of her in the cockpit and she's like throwing her arm, like you feel like that weight of what she's doing. It doesn't just feel like she's just like swinging her arms around and it's responding. It's like, no, she's having to like fight to like throw this punch or to like throw this roundhouse kick or whatever she's doing. And she's just dismembering these things left and right, like doing flips through the air and crushing their skull, snapping their neck, tearing one in half.
That's German for first.
She's busting out moves that her Eva, or weapons her Eva had that I didn't even know it had, like the spikes that fire from the shoulder or whatever up through the thing's chin. I was like, I didn't even know you could do that, but that's pretty metal. Like, that's pretty awesome. She's just on a killing spree, and it's insane. The problem in all of this, she is not up to speed because of her mental state in a while. She's not aware, and we'll get to it, but she doesn't know what an S2 drive implies. And I kind of feel like there's a plot hole here, but we'll get into that in a minute. So you see her kicking ass. Earlier when she had gotten a moment of talking with Misato, Misato basically said Shinji was going to be on his way. And she's now getting frustrated because Shinji's still not there. And she's like, oh, you can't count on idiot Shinji for anything. Like, I'll take care of it myself. And you see Shinji is at Unit 1, which is covered in bakelite. He can't even get to it if he wanted to.
Yeah, and, you know, he's not really trying to do anything either. He's just kind of moping like, oh, man.
Oh, gosh.
Wish I could do something about this. Oh, golly geez. So she is currently arm deep in one Eva, trying to rip out the core of the second Eva or squish it to death. And a sword is coming at her back, which she stops with the AT field. But then the sword...
So hold on, note on that, clarification on the AT field. When we were talking earlier about how her mother is in Eva Unit 2, her mother is the AT field of Unit 2, and you've actually seen her in the fight weaponizing the AT field in ways we've never seen, not just using it as a shield, but even using it in a more offensive sense. So yes, effectively it is like her mother projected out, like shielding her in this case. Continue.
Yeah, and as this sword hits the AT field, it changes into a spear and goes right through Asuka's head, and she falls back. The spear is literally in the ground holding her up, and we get a shot of her screaming, and blood is coming out of her eye. It is an absolute mess. Like, she is messed up.
And now the tide turns.
Is she bleeding from her head?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Remember how I said it's Hideki Anno's revenge against the fan base?
My goodness, that's pretty hardcore.
This is the revenge for sure. If you thought Asuka was going to be okay, this is your first little hint that no, this is not going to go the way you wanted it to.
She rose from the ashes like a phoenix, only to be, taken to slaughter, basically, is what it's amounting to. And it's even worse than that. So she took out presumably 6 of the 9 Evas. She's in like the final 10 seconds when you mentioned she was arm deep through the belly of one and grabbing the core of another one and trying to crush it. And so she had taken out 6 for sure, had effectively taken out 8 of the 9. when the last one throws the spear at her, even though it doesn't initially look like it. And it's crazy too, because she was even wielding one of their spears at one point to like cut off one's neck or whatever, like cut off the leg of one and then like chop another one through the head. So it's like she didn't even know when she was wielding the damn thing what it was. But yeah, there's that moment then as she's doing that, and you realize like, oh, it's even worse than you thought, because all the ones you've just brutalized, they're not healing, but they're still alive because of their S2 drives, which, like I said, she doesn't know what that entails, what that means. And I'm kind of pissed off. It feels like a plot hole. Nobody told her. Like, in battle, no one in the command center, not Maya, not long hair, not glasses. Maybe the idea, like, because we know they're watching, like, they're commenting on the fight that they're observing from Unit 2's vitals and everything. And so it's like, none of you could have mentioned, like, hey, if you're not destroying the core, the S2 drive, they're not dead. They should know what an S2 drive is. Or Fuyutsuki is in the room. Someone should have had an ability to convey this information. I know Fuyutsuki doesn't really give a shit about Asuka, but it kind of feels like, hey, if these are Seilei's master plan to beat us, and you're trying to prevent them from beating you, it feels like you should tell the one person who's standing there as a line of defense what to do in that fight. So yeah, she doesn't destroy the cores. She only attempted to destroy one core. And now the gangly, just destroyed mess of the other mass-produced Evas are standing back up. And they got some vulturistic tendencies and traits to them, because they all pounce on Unit 2 at once and just start fucking devouring it. And it is hardcore. Like, it's a little hard to watch, because again, she's feeling all of this. It doesn't matter that she powered down after getting the spear through the eye. You see her like grabbing her belly. She's like writhing and arcing her back, writhing in pain as like these things are tearing Unit 2 apart. Its intestines pulled out and everything. And you're just like, she's feeling all of this. And she's still like obsessively trying to fight. She's like, even as she's basically being ripped apart, she's like, I will kill you. I will kill you. And it's just like, girl, calm down. Your anger is just making Unit 2 try to go berserk. And like, the more you sustain that connection, the more you're going to feel. If you just like let it go, you're not, like, it might not be as bad, but you're prolonging the suffering.
Yeah, and as she's reaching her hand up in the air, screaming, well, not screaming, but saying, I'll kill you, which is kind of mirroring when we see her at the start of don't kill me, to I'll kill you. And she's reaching her hand up in the air, and literally her whole arm gets split in half as she gets riddled with spears, because every single one of those swords was a spear. And they're all awake, they're all fighting back, and Asuka is toast.
Yep. Asuka is gone now as well, so we've lost. We don't see Rei next to her, I notice. I don't know what that means, but we do see Rei appearing by a lot of people as shit is happening. We don't see that. That's an interesting omission. Maybe that's about the dynamic of their relationship. I don't know. But yeah, so we've lost Misato, we've lost Risuko, and now Asuka. And the second Asuka dies, Unit 1 wakes up. And like Shinji in the intercom can hear the command center screaming that Asuka's dead. And he's just kind of further burying his head in his, he's like sitting with his knees tucked to his chest and his arms folded, and he's just kind of further burying his head in his arms. Like he can't, he's about to shut down again. And Unit 1 snaps awake the second Unit 2 and Asuka are dead. And you're like, oh shit, okay. So Shinji is in Unit 1. He is rising to the surface. Unit 1 is projecting, because of its sync rate or whatever, projecting. It's like it's full God mode. We are finally seeing Unit 1 like fully awaken. We know it has the S2 drive as well. And it's the first time that it's like tapping in, I guess, to that power. because in the intro of the show, you do see a moment where Unit 1 kind of has this like wings of light around it, but you never saw it in the series. So that's why I kind of feel like that had to be a concept that either was originally planned and just didn't get used, or that he always knew was going to come up in a later iteration somehow, he being Anno. But Unit 1 rises up, it's got the glowing eyes, the few remaining military people that are still there, seeing it rise up, they even kind of comment like, it's Unit 1. And they're like, it's the devil incarnate. And I was just like, oh, that is like the most badass line as it's rising up from the just rubble of the pyramid. And then as this like hurricane wind is all around it, Shinji sees the absolute, just pieces of Unit 2 everywhere. Its brains, its face laid bare and peeled apart, eye hanging out, guts spewed everywhere. And he knows obviously what that has to mean. And part 1 ends with Shinji screaming like the most traumatized, like mind-breaking scream into the abyss. And it's kind of haunting the way it pulls out from the in-tight cockpit shot where you can really hear him to pulling back and fading until his voice is lost in that whirlwind around Unit 1. Just a really, I think, effective way to close part 1 and the effective end of what was like the TV movie episode 25 remake, essentially.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was a brutal way to end it. And then now we're on to credits.
Yep. We get a mid-credit roll, not an end credits. Apparently Anno wanted to go with this because these played back to back. And so Anno's idea was he wanted to use every minute of time he had. He wanted to leave you with whatever the last impression or question was at the end, and didn't even want the credits getting in the way. So you get the elaborate, several minutes long mid-credits, which is actually kind of cool. Like, not only it's a weird spiral staircase effect they got going on, but the mid-roll thing almost serving as like an intermission I thought was unique. And I did kind of like that, like, okay, going into the last stretch of this, we know every minute that shows is left is the show. Like, we're not going to get bogged down in like, oh, but is it like 7 or 8 minutes of credits? Like, no. Every minute that shows we got left is the movie, is things happening. Yep. Like, that was actually kind of a cool thing to look forward to once I thought of it that way.
Yeah, so I like it.
Yeah, so that'll wrap up where we are for part 1 of this End of Evangelion series here. We're going to do 2 parts on this, I think. Next one, we'll be diving into basically episode 26. Technically, if you're looking at the TV series, we're technically not even quite into that yet, because I think 26, by the time that happens, instrumentality has already started, or maybe it happens in the first minute or 2 in the TV show. So, yeah, we're going to be there real quick, but this is a heavy moment to close out on for sure. And basically putting you in every worst moment of dread that you can experience. But you do have this thought of hope, like, okay, Shinji is awake and in Unit 1, ready to fight. He's lost everything. Maybe there's fire and vengeance in him, but he is going against the mass-produced Evas. What's going to happen? It's still 9-on-1. It's an interesting question. So let me see, before we wrap up this point here, How did you, I guess, generally feel to like this point of it, just real quick before we put the button on this, to this point, this midpoint of the movie, what were your impressions? Like, how much had your attitude changed against your expectations?
Good. I mean, I would say good. I definitely was like upset that I got more of like little baby bitch Shinji, but I did get my Oscar, reincarnation, revival, just badass mofo moment, which is really what I was wishing I got out of 25 and 26. So I would say I was very fulfilled there. Trying to think if there's anything else.
I thought for the characters that we lost, they did a lot that made every one of them look strong in defeat. Like,
I love a good death.
Yeah.
Yeah. like when you saw Risuko and Masato die in 25, I think 25 is when that's revealed. It had no weight. So it's like you didn't give me a reason they died. You didn't give them like this beautiful final moment. It's like Leon the Professional. If you've seen the movie, I believe. The final scene, I won't get into it just in case anyone listening has not seen it. It's amazing, but there's this death that happens that is so impactful because of the way it happens and because of this person and their last moments and doing something ultimately for the greater good, which is what makes that death acceptable.
Yeah.
But when it's just like, nope, they got killed, they didn't do anything, it's just nothing, you can't make anything of that. It's like you built me up on this character this whole time and you just threw him in the trash. Like, make their death worth something.
Yeah. No, I agree. And Anno absolutely did that in End of Evangelion. All three of those deaths, all three brutal in different ways, but they all go out. They look strong. Like they're defiant and they're fierce to the end. Like Asuka's resurrection, like you said, kind of the phoenix rising from the ashes, ascending to new heights we'd never seen in any other fight. And like I said, if she had just been given proper instruction, now I think that's why to me it bothers me, because they needed the all 9 mass-produced Evas because of what they set up in 26. We'll see the second half of this, but if you didn't have to have all 9 of them, I think you could have still had it where somebody told Asuka that you have to target the cores early in the fight. Maybe she takes 1 or 2 down. They're like, no, that's not going to work. You have to take out the cores if you want to actually destroy them. That would have worked, because it kind of instead feels like a retread of that episode where she's trying to be in sync with Shinji to beat the one that can split in 2. She's not attacking the core, she's just attacking the body and it's splitting in 2. So it's almost like she hasn't learned her lesson. But it's like, if she had gotten that instruction, she still could have taken out some of them and still been felled by the surprise Spear of Longinus. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You still had it built in where she could have been taken out even if she was doing it right. But because you need all 9 of them because of what you're doing, you're kind of shoehorned in. And I get it, it is more devastating to, like, she's already been hit by the spear, she's powered down, and oh yeah, by the way, here's the gruesome mess of all 6 that you thought you took out, or all 8 you thought you took out, rising up again. That is like a horrifying thing. So I don't know. I guess it just bugs me that, like, she still had Maya and like 2 other people plus Futsuki in the command center, and not one person gave her a word of advice. I can understand why Misato's not there. I can understand why Shinji's not there to give her advice. But that no one else can tell her, like, a word about how she needs to fight or what she should do. I'm just like, I don't know. That just feels weird to me.
Maya didn't know that was going to happen. She does have a line that's like, oh my gosh, they're coming back to life.
Okay.
Like, and that very well could have been
But Futsuki knows.
That could have been a trauma response. Like, a lot's going on. People are literally shooting guns. Like, she's trying to focus on a lot of different things. So that could have easily slipped her mind. Now, Futsuki, yeah, I guess, I don't know. It's like, I don't know what's happening with him at this time, and I'm not remembering exactly what he's doing. So, like,
Gendo left him in charge when he left. That's all we know.
Yeah, I just doubt that that's his priority right now. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. But if you gave Masato that if you gave Asuka that information, I think they were also thinking, well, the next logical step is if you realize you're going to lose a fight, she needs to go look for a power source, and we need her to be in this location. So we need that information to get excluded for whatever reason. Yeah,
because we showed in an episode, the Direxy episode, that they can charge up at different ports around there. So even after her one umbilical cord was destroyed, I wonder why there wasn't another one. Maybe it was destroyed somewhere in one of the other recent episodes, because we know the city took a ton of damage over this time. So maybe it's already gone, but I don't know. It is what it is. She goes out like a badass all the same, but yeah, it's gut-wrenching, and it's like, you might feel bad and like, oh, damn, Misato went out, or ooh, there goes Risuko. Asuka was just like a horror show, man. That was like a grindhouse picture, like someone like going down, and you're just like, oh my god, you hate this character. Send them out like this. Yeah, not enough to take the spear through the eye, not enough to be ripped, gutted, basically, but then we gotta like stab you with 7 other spears and chop your arm in half, and it's just like, oh, and then we're going to show a moment later when Shinji comes out that they've continued feasting even after that, and one of them's like carrying the head away. Like, good god, man, you cannot be more brutal with this. So yeah,
it's hardcore.
Yep. But it's haunting. That's the best way I know to sum up the first half of this. It's so fast paced. It's just like, it's almost whiplash from what 25-26 was, but in all the right ways. And even when Anno's having his quote unquote revenge, you're still like, dude, it's compelling. Even if I hate that these characters are gone, even if I like these characters and I've grown attached to them and this isn't what I wanted to see for them, I'm not mad at it, because like, he at least gave them a fitting ending. If he just hated the characters, he would have just killed them. He would have just had Asuka literally drown in the fetal position in the bottom of the lake or get blown up by a shell. He would have had Misato get shot in that stairwell trying to get to Shinji or something. And he would have left Risuko like in the jail or something and just set on fire at some point when those guys were going around. Like, that's what he would have done if he just hated these characters and just wanted the fan base to suffer. He still gives a compelling thing, and so even though it's intense and haunting, we're like, damn, I didn't want to see that, but I respect it. It's compelling, it's fitting. You at least let them go out in the strongest way possible. And now I'm looking at Shinji, and I'm just like, dude, I hope you got your shit together, because like, the stakes are stupid high, and you're all that's left. You are the last line here, and that is not a good place to be, but you can't help it. Like, as you're waiting for those credits to end to get into the next part, you're like, I gotta see, I gotta know. Like, even if it wasn't an all-in-one thing and they were still separated with like like 25 and 26 where we have the end credits and then the intro credits, you'd be like, I can't just stop at 25. I have to know what happens next. But so that'll wrap up our part 1 here. End of Evangelion. So far, freaking love it. Absolutely stunning, beautiful animation, intense, fast-paced plot, a lot of answers, a lot of clarity, and a better send-off for a lot of these characters that we've come to know through all this time. We'll be back here soon with part 2, and then we'll probably have some bonus work as well. We have some other stuff that we're going to talk about, because we've already touched on some of these moments, but we got to do a recount here of the what the fuckinings, as I like to call them, of this movie, because there are a solid 5 or 6, and the fact that we've gotten to only about 2 of them so far is pretty telling. So that'll be next episode. Those are our takes. You may think them cheap, but to you we say, screw you. We'll be back soon. Until then, I've been Derek.
And I've been Matt.
Peace.